This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts.
Jonathan Bennett, welcome to the conversation today.
It's great to be here, John.
It is great to be with you. You're joining us from Ontario. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about navigating the emotional journey of a merger or acquisition of your company. You know, I think emotional journey is a great way to put it. I might have even framed it as emotional roller coaster. I think it's definitely a journey. It's definitely something that's not for the faint of heart. It's a challenge, to say the least, as you're going through that process. Particularly, you know, if you're an owner or if you're a senior executive in a company that's going through a merger or acquisition, but even if you're like a middle manager or a line level employee, for anyone in the organization, my goodness, that's a hard thing to go through. And so we're going to explore that. We're going to talk through that and really what you can do to kind of mitigate the impact, and to really get through that in a resilient fashion. As we start off this conversation, I just wanted to share Jonathan's bio with everybody. Jonathan Bennett provides sought-after leadership coaching and strategic counsel to CEOs, executive teams, politicians, and boards of directors across Canada. With experience in urban, rural, remote, and First Nations communities, Jonathan's expertise in social purpose business strategy, governance, branding, change, and communications. He really has gotten into coaching, but prior to that, Jonathan founded Lariday, a management consulting and training firm that helps nonprofit and public sector organizations soar. It now has served more than 200 clients. Before I go further, I just want to give you a chance to share with the audience anything else about your background, personal context, and then we'll dive on in.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on. A bit about me. So I did an English literature degree. All I ever wanted to be was a poet and a novelist. And I'm proud to say I've published 7 books and had a lot of fun doing that. But the short form is, folks, poetry doesn't pay. And
Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. Earn 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. And with a welcome offer of 150,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership, your business can soar to new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at Polestar.com.
If you went on a road trip and you didn't stop for a Big Mac or drop a crispy fry between the car seats or use your McDonald's bag as a placemat, then that wasn't a road trip. It was just a really long drive. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's.
Hey, business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 110,000 bonus miles for a limited time through July 16th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends 7/16/25.
So I needed a job along the way, and I got into corporate communications and ended up in general management. I was on the senior team of a big, huge hospital here in Ontario. And that's really kind of where I got my chops into strategy and planning and governance kind of work. And so from there, I founded a firm and had a just a crazy, wild, fun journey for the next 10 years in growing and ultimately selling that firm.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, it's sad, isn't it, that things like poetry don't pay? I mean, certainly it can. I mean, there are the rare examples, but, you know, they're far and few between. And it is kind of sad because, you know, I have a soft place in my heart for the humanities, and, you know, the human side, you know, just craves that. We need that. We need the beauty. We need the art. We need the poetry. We need all of that. In this day and age, in particular, as we have like the you know, AI and like all, you know, the robotics and like all this stuff, like we need all of that. Oh my goodness. But it's hard. Like it's hard to make a living off of it. And so but if that's your passion, to anyone listening, don't give up on it. Keep doing it.
Oh,
you know,
100%.
But you're probably going to have to keep, you know, you're probably going to have to supplement your income with something else.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's a both and I always tell people, like, I have a daughter who's in first year's humanity. She just started in first year university in humanities. And, you know, I mean, it's where you learn how to think. And thinking's never going to go out of fashion. And, you know, like, it's kind of the old joke, but like, if you learn how to think, you can hire all the MBAs in the world. Like, you need to be the person that can think creatively and think in new and innovative ways. And I really believe that.
I absolutely agree. You know, I'm a sociology undergrad myself. I'm a big believer in the social sciences, the humanities. We need more philosophy majors. We need more English majors and poetry.
I agree.
We need more of it, right?
I agree.
This is not the topic, but since we kind of got into this, I'll say one more thing really quick. You know, I'm a university professor, and you know, I do consulting stuff as well, things like this podcast as well. But you know, I lament when I see, you know, more and more there are, you know, universities across the world, certainly across the nation here in the U.S. that are, you know, there's political, in part due to political pressure. You know, I see in the U.S. in particular, you know, this drive to streamline the university experience towards career readiness. And this mentality around career readiness is, you know, it's all about skill. And when we think about skill, you know, in my mind and in your mind, we're thinking about decision making. We're thinking about creativity. We're thinking about like those human elements that come from things like the humanities and those sorts of things. But a lot of times in the minds of the politicians, you know, they're not thinking that. They're thinking about, you know, these other things. And so, you know, I lament when I see things like ethical decision making curriculum getting cut from an MBA curriculum, or those sorts of things. Like, oh my goodness, we need more of that, you know, in an MBA program, not less of that. We need more, you know, business leaders having that kind of thinking in how they go about doing their work, not less of that. So anyways, that's my soapbox for just a moment before we dive on.
You're preaching to the choir, my friend. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, with that said, let's actually get into what we're going to talk about today. So you've actually experienced this whole merger acquisition thing. You know, you had your background that you shared with us. You got into your own firm. You grow, you build it, you grow it, and now you're getting to the point of going through that process yourself. Tell us a little bit about that. Both the process of growing it, getting it to that point, and then what does it feel like when you're starting to explore it and then starting to actually do it?
Yeah, it really is an emotional journey. I mean, think about what it's like to found something where there is nothing. Now there is something, and you wrap your identity up in this thing that you're growing, and it really doesn't matter whether it's a services firm like mine was, it was a management consulting firm, or whether you're doing something physical and a kind of Main Street business, you name it. Like if it's a part of what you put your heart and soul into, then you're creating this thing, and over time, you get wrapped up in, and it becomes how you describe yourself at the Christmas party, how you think about yourself, and of course you're the owner and you're thinking about it at 4 a.m, and it's all that's going on, and eventually you get to a place where maybe there's something else for you to do, and it's a big turning point. And so for me,
Yeah.
I remember the exact moment. It was I think around 2018, and I was on a vacation with my wife. We were in Dublin in Ireland, and we were walking for days on end, and we were just talking about the future. And I kind of confessed that I think I may be coming to the end of this journey, and I think I'm thinking about maybe what could be next. And she just looked at me kind of glibly and said, well, you better get a plan together because you can't just give 2 weeks notice. And it's like that's what it's like being married to a psychotherapist. Sometimes they cut through the quick. And I took it to heart because I realized in my mind there was somebody at the company that would be the natural successor. But despite me being a management consultant and teaching other people about succession planning, I really hadn't done it myself.
Yeah.
And so I came back and began a kind of slow burn conversation with my colleague. And in fact, I kind of created a process, talked to everybody in the company. What are they thinking? Just to make sure there wasn't any other folks there that had aspirations or anything that I was missing. And so we went through a kind of careful transition process, and we orchestrated a management buyout. And we did it in a way that I think really worked well for us. I actually stepped down as CEO a year before I sold the company to her, and she stepped up. And and that gave her time to kind of wrap her head around it. It also gave time for our clients to have a lot of comfort that the world was still going to continue on as they'd understood it to, and gave a really nice kind of window. The sort of humbling thing for me, John, was that it's amazing how fast everybody in the company just orientated to her leadership.
How quick they moved on.
Oh yeah, I thought I was the shit, but it turned out I was just the boss. And that just it was like I could barely get a meeting towards the end. I'm like, I still actually technically own the place. But I'm grateful for that because it taught me a lot about how organizational dynamics really do work and how you think it is about your leadership, and you tell yourself all this stuff. But actually people know where their bread is buttered, and people understand how to position themselves, and there's a lot of jockeying that goes on in any normal culture. And so I learned a lot through that process. But the emotional journey, and if that's where we're going, it felt to me like I thought I had it in hand. In my mind, the selling of the company, it was about how many multiple times earnings and EBITDA, and pricing a company. And actually, that's just the easy part. The lawyers and the accountants, they wrap around you, and you go into the thing and you figure it out, and financing and all of that happens. Great. There's a million people out there that know a ton about that. What I really learned was it's like surfing, the old Kubler-Ross curve. You've got so much grief and letting go and anger and strange feelings because it really is your identity, and you're moving on to this new place in your life. And it feels like nobody prepares you for that. And it took much longer to, just kind of go through that. I'll just call it kind of a grieving process before I sort of came out the other side and realized, okay, now, I've kind of completed the story and I understand it, and here it is. And so I've been, talking with lots of founders and lots of other folks that are at some point on their exit journey, whether it's at the start of just contemplating it or pre-contemplating it, all the way through to I've done it, but I'm struggling. And there's a lot of common elements there, a lot of common ground for folks to kind of come together and realize that this really is a bigger thing that we don't usually talk about.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So there's a lot I think to unpack there. For you, as the owner who's going through the process of making the transition, there's a whole lot you're dealing with. Uh, I couldn't help but just kind of crack up a little bit as you're expressing kind of the handoff of the baton and realizing that maybe you're not as essential anymore as maybe you thought you were,
Totally.
which is actually awesome, right? That's what you want. On the one hand, that's 100% what you want. On the other hand, it is a little bit of an ego, burst because
Just
because
crushing.
you do like being needed, right?
You
You
do.
love being needed and wanted, and then when you realize, oh, maybe I'm not as quite essential as maybe I imagine, but it's wonderful because the best indication of you doing a good job as a leader is that you've built your bench strength, that you've prepared other people to take over. So actually, that's a huge kudos to you. That was the case, right?
Thank
But
you.
it is a
Yeah.
little bit of a gut punch, when you start
It
to step away.
it totally is. And, I mean, of course, theoretically, you want to be working on the business, not in the business, and you want it to be able to
Hmm.
run when you're not even there. And like, these are all the things that I think many entrepreneurs aspire to. And one of the things, of course, that holds us back is exactly what you just said, because like the extent to which you extricate yourself from your business, it's this thing that it's like, oh, I'm not needed anymore. Like, I don't even have a role. Like, what is my identity here? And so it really is like it's a really common feeling to have.
Yeah. The other thing that you're talking about that I think is a really great lesson is you even though perhaps you hadn't started thinking about this earlier, your wife, gave you a little nudge and gave you the heads up, and you did start thinking about it in advance. You gave it a good runway of preparation, and you sat down with your team. You started to explore it. You had a year, of runway to go through this transition. That's a good thing because a lot of times there isn't that kind of runway, and so it kind of catches everyone off guard. And when it catches
Yeah,
everyone off guard, people start to freak out. And it's not just internally, it's not just the people on your team, it's the customers, it's the clients. They start to
yeah,
freak out and all the uncertainty starts to ripple, right? And even though there may actually not be really any disruption to the services or really nothing's really going to change for the clients. Just the uncertainty or the potential of change is really what upsets them. And so having the steady runway in place
hmm
is a really great lesson, I think, for anyone listening. So I appreciate that. And then on the internal side, tell us a little bit more about how that process allowed for a smoother handoff of the baton to the point where, like you said, by the end, you even as the owner struggled to get a meeting.
yeah,
It's pretty darn smooth at that point. Like people are really just moving on. You
yep,
now have the new CEO, the new owner. You kind of fade into the background
yeah.
though it's a little bit of a gut punch, like that's probably the most ideal kind of a situation that you could have.
I think so, and I think the lesson here for folks listening is that the emotional journey and intellectual journey that you go on as an owner or as the leader of a company that's about to go through some kind of merger acquisition is that you do the work up front before the thing happens, and you're doing it in secret and in private. And very few people, for good reasons, legal reasons and privacy reasons, stability reasons, very few people know about it. So
Yeah.
sometimes you're thinking about this thing for years, and you're, playing your chess, and you're thinking about the things in your mind and how am I going to pull the things together and create the value and put it on the market or pull it together or whatever's happening. You're often doing this stuff quietly, and when you get to that point of doing the big reveal, hey, pull everybody to the boardroom or have the virtual meeting and like, okay, so I've got some important news today, and you kind of like, do the big announcement. Um, I'm often coaching folks that, 2 weeks later, they're like wondering why everybody's losing their brains. And I'm like, dude, you've been thinking about this for 2 years. Like, you have to give them more than 2 weeks. to incorporate the change, because at the start, all they're doing is classic change management stuff. It's just me, which is just normal. And it takes people a while to process and reconstitute themselves. And they'll have an emotional reaction. Like they might have been attached to you. They might have come to work here because of you. Or they might have wanted a smaller place, and now you're getting bought by a much bigger place, or you're getting amalgamated into two, and it's like, wait a second, wasn't that, this firm over there that's buying us, they were our enemies until 5 minutes ago, and now we have to put a smile on our face and all like join together. And like, these things are hard for people. And so, my counsel to leaders I work with is just to have some real grace and allow people the same thing that you had, which was time to process.
Absolutely. That's an issue that comes up, I think, all the time for senior leaders, whether it's a merger and acquisition or a reorg or any change, any big change in an organization. Almost always this issue happens. Like what you just described happens.
It really does.
in the minds of a senior leader, a CEO or a C-suite executive, they've been talking about this. They've been thinking about it. They've been talking about it in meetings for weeks, for months, in their circles. It's been all they've been thinking about and talking about for a long time. And now they've been expressing it and sharing it with other people. And then they don't understand, why aren't they getting it? Why aren't they understanding it? Why are they so caught up on this? I've moved on. And what you just described is absolutely what you have to remember. So, I mean, sometimes it's just simply the fact that you got to repeat stuff multiple times, like the communication factor.
Sure.
Sometimes it's the emotional factor of just like the mourning cycle, the change cycle, those sorts of things. It's just the reality of how humans process, and so just remind yourself of that. I think it's natural for leaders to also forget this, because we're human. And so, it's natural for us to just realize, like, we've moved on. It's, unless we can check ourselves, it's natural for us to also not realize and remember that, oh, everyone else hasn't moved on. So we need to check ourselves. All of these things are really important, because it's really dangerous if we don't remember that we can really, really shoot ourselves in the foot and shoot like our culture in the foot. Like we can shoot our ability to have a clean change, a clean switch and adjustment, if we say and do the wrong things in that moment, because we're frustrated, right? With our people.
Yeah, it really is true. And it's completely predictable. Like in my mind, we should put, a kind of grief cycle as a line on the Gantt chart.
Yeah.
Like in the project. Like 100% this thing will happen. And so how long will it take people? Well, how long did it take you to absorb it, to make the decision, to get to a point of being frustrated and wanting to move on with it? Well, that took 6 weeks. Okay, so let's put a 6-week line on the Gantt chart and assume everybody else is going to take at least as long as you did. And so it is really like, I think we're constantly surprised by it as leaders, and we really ought not to be, because it is completely predictable. And I love how you expanded from where I went, and because you see it everywhere. I mean, we just see it in all kinds of things. A reorg is a great example.
Yeah, it always happens. So you go through the process. We can use you as an example again, but you go through that process, you get through it. Then what? Like you come to the other side. In your case, now you've just sold your company. You're no longer CEO. Where do you go from there?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of hit a point in my career in life where I thought, what is my next act? And I think I really took some time with it. And I thought that the one thing that I knew was that I really loved serving leaders. I had been doing so many strategic plans, like just all the strategic plans for 10 years, 100 and something of them. I was just so done facilitating large groups and grinding out plans. And it was fascinating, interesting work. I still do it, but only in a narrow way now. What I really wanted to do was serve the leaders themselves, not the organizations and not the companies. And so that was my shift. And so these days I'm a trusted advisor. I kind of use coaching as a tool. I call myself a coach, but like, to be honest, I give a heck of a lot more advice than a lot of coaches do and should, because I've been there. I'm getting old, because I know stuff. And so people tend to call me when they're at the crossroads, when they know that they've got blind spots and they've got business issues that they want to bust through, and they want to make better decisions faster. That's usually why I get called in.
Yeah, yeah, really cool. And I suppose for everyone listening, that's going to look different, right? So if you're in the position like you were,
100%.
where you're doing the selling, you're doing the stepping down from that kind of a role,
Yeah.
what's your next stage? You always have to ask yourself that question. Let's say I'm the one that's staying behind. Now I have just gotten bought out and I'm staying behind. I'm part of this new mesh together leadership team.
Yep.
That's a hard thing. So like
It's really hard.
you
Oh, it's
said
really hard.
earlier,
Yeah, go ahead.
you said earlier, like you may now be paired up with your fierce competitor, like the ones you hated like 5 minutes ago, and now you are
100%.
you are supposed to like be partners and like team together and like share a culture. That is not an easy thing to do.
No, it isn't. I mean, and we also know, I mean, the management literature will bear out, so many M&As fail
Yeah.
because these things it's cultural, and it's so tough. And there's everything from like survivor guilt, like, big layoffs happen. We don't need two of
Mhm.
this guy anymore, or two of this person anymore. And so, we end up, rationalizing and consolidating. And so folks that survive have all the guilt and the weird things. There's I didn't choose this new entity, whether it's, we've been taken over by company B, company A gets taken over by company B, or a company C gets created, like whatever it is, like that is a choice that's been imposed upon you. You have to go through, you have agency. Do I stay? Is this for me? Maybe I'll give it some time and think it through. I'll see how it feels. And, they're also your new folks are looking at you thinking, is this person for us? And so it's a new job. Who are we kidding? Like, it's a new team, it's a new job, and it's a tumultuous time for everybody. And I think I think it just serves us all well to be sensitive to how long it takes. It takes much longer than we think it is going to take. Like I was saying to somebody the other day, like, you should imagine how long you're going to think it's going to take and then triple it, because it
Right.
really will. It really will be that hard.
Well, Jonathan, this has just been a really fun conversation. We've only scratched the surface. I think there's a ton more we could talk about, but I do note the time. I need to let you go and get on with your busy day. Before we wrap things up, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Yeah, thanks. So my website is clearlythen.com. I'm really active, Jonathan Bennett, on LinkedIn, and shoot me DM. I like to spend an hour or so with folks that are leading organizations and are at that real big change point in their life, and they'd like some support. So if that sounds like you, feel free to reach out. Final thought on M&As. I really think it takes a lot longer for it to work itself through than anybody ever thinks. And so put grief on a Gantt chart, folks.
I love it. I love it. Grief on a Gantt chart. Jonathan, thank you. It's been a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Jonathan can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.